Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Airbnb Nomads podcast. You're with me, Alex, and the main man, Mr. Pooh. And on this week's Property Education Masterclass, we are joined by the one and only Katy Tyler. Now, Katy is a full-time serviced accommodation business owner and investor, and also simultaneously mother to a young and ever-growing family. And in this episode, we're going to be discussing some of the challenges and also maybe some of the advantages in mixing business with family, and how Katy has grown her own very successful serviced accommodation business while also being mum to her young family. So stay tuned. I think you're going to find this really inspiring, and I'm really looking forward to talking to Katy around this topic. So here we go. Welcome back to the Airbnb Nomads podcast. You're here with me, Alex, and my main man, Mr. Pooh. We are here this week with Katy Tyler. Katy Tyler is a full-time property investor and a full-time mum, which is pretty cool. And I think she's got some very interesting stories for her. And I actually met Katy recently because I went to view some apartments that Katy was not continuing with, and I was going to potentially take them on under a rent to service accommodation model. So maybe we can chat a little bit about that. But welcome, Katy, to the podcast. Thanks for joining us. Thank you so much for joining us. So we've known each other for about 24 hours?
24 hours, yeah.
Pretty much exactly, right? We got chatting last night. So as I said in the introduction, I was going to take on some of Katy's units. So I reached out to Katy last night through Facebook and just wanted to get some of the inside information about, why she was passing up on the units, why she was walking away from them. So it was really good just to get some honest information from the inside. And through talking to her on the phone, I was really inspired by some of the things that she was saying, just about some of the property strategies that she's been involved in, the fact that she's a full-time mum as well, and just how she's juggling everything. I thought it was quite inspiring. So
amazing.
I wanted to welcome Katy onto the podcast. So first of all, thanks for joining us. I think we're going to have some juicy stuff tonight on the podcast. So Katy, why don't we start with the basics? Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what's going on in your life today?
So obviously you get Katy. I am a mother of three, ranging from 19 months to 9 years old. So 2 girls and a lovely little boy.
Wow.
And I started my property journey, I would say, as an accidental landlord. I bought pretty young. I was 22 when I got on the property ladder. Just like a flat, a brand new build flat. And we obviously stayed there for quite a number of years, and then when we got to a point where we felt like we needed more space, so naturally we then went and started looking at houses, and then I changed my mortgage over to a buy-to-let mortgage, and then that was how we started being a landlord in effect. And I'd always been interested in property from a really young age. I was like, when I was younger, I was obsessed with changing rooms and all that is interior programs, but that was kind of where the whole property thing started. And obviously then that led to things like Homes Under the Hammer and programs like that. So I'd always had this urge to want to do that at some point in my life. I've had various career paths, went to university, etc. I studied fashion promotion. I've had various careers and things. I then went into floristry and had my own floristry business. I used to do weddings and events. And then once I had children, obviously that then changed my mindset, and I came out of the floristry game. But it was around that time, it was actually around when I was actually on a property course when I found out that I was actually pregnant. In between the lunch break, I ran out to Boots and went and got a pregnancy test.
Oh.
Wow.
And, I was like, oh my God. And so that was...
Did you finish the course, most importantly?
I finished the course, but I didn't actually go into property at that time. So my little girl was 9.
You probably didn't take anything in after that for the rest of the course.
It was so bizarre. It was pretty funny because I've kind of forgot about that, but that was I was doing a HMO course at the time, and and that was that. So obviously the baby took priority and things, and obviously in that time I was a landlord, and just obviously getting to know the business and things. And then it was 2016, and my mum had just died. I was pregnant. I'd had the baby. My mum died a few weeks later, and I don't know what it was. It was obviously me, a knee-jerk reaction to things. I then booked onto a accommodation course. That was obviously the way I was dealing with things, and I did a course. It was actually with Progressive, and I did that, and I was like, right, this is it. This is what I want to get into. But obviously, at the time, obviously grief took its toll and things like that. So I didn't actually do anything with it till like 2018. And so that's when it really started for me. I started to go over notes and started to like research and things. And then I went on a course, basically just like how to find vendors, direct to vendor, and estate agents and things like that. And at the time, there wasn't many of those types of courses that was going on. So that's what I did. And I think in memory, I think I had a little bet with the trainers, and I kind of said, right, I'm going to get one within a month. And I don't think he quite believed me, but I did. I went out and I bagged basically the property that you went to see today. And so it basically started with one flat. I took that on, and it kind of it went from there. But sorry, prior to that, I'd set up a beach hut hire business when I was pregnant, and I'd bought two beach huts in a coastal town, and that's how it all basically started. Because obviously I was renting out beach huts. That was a kind of passive income as well. I've always had a love for the beach and all things beach related. And during that time that I set the business up and was renting the beach huts out, I could see that there was a need for accommodation within the area. And so in the back of my mind, I was always thinking, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do. And that's basically how the two kind of interlinked, because I knew I already had an audience there with my beach hut, like my followers and things like that, and all my customers, my return customers. And so I basically bagged my first rent to SA and set that up. And then it was a townhouse split into 3 apartments, and there was other tenants in there at the time, which was hard. It was hard trying to set that up and then be dealing with guests and tenants down below and things like that. So I knew in my mindset, and I'd spoke to the agent at the time, and I said, like, if they ever become available, then please let me know, because I would eventually like to take the building. And that's what I did over a couple of years. One by one, I took the 3 apartments on. So yeah, that's how it started. So yeah.
Brilliant. Yep.
So going back to the beginning, there's obviously quite a lot to unpack. How did you said you got on the property ladder at 22? That was when you bought your first place. Obviously pretty young to be getting on the property ladder.
Decision I ever made,
so obviously, right. So I think things now, are changing a little bit, and people aren't necessarily as eager to get on the property ladder early, because I think stuff's shifting. People want to potentially rent for a bit longer and kind of have a bit more freedom to kind of move around and try and work out kind of what they're doing. So how did you make that happen at 22? Like, how was you in that position to go out and buy property? Did you have a high paying job, or how did
I was a florist at the time, working over in Canary Wharf. And obviously my boyfriend, he had a full-time job, and it was kind of just they'd built these new apartments literally about 5-10 minutes away from my parents' house. And I was just like, oh, why don't we just go and have a look, kind of thing. And we did. And I kind of, again, you go in there, you see the show home, you're like, oh, wow, this is perfect. And I basically come out and I'd signed my name to it. So obviously being a local resident, you kind of got a bit like first refusal, kind of like within the area kind of thing. And that's...
Was this it? Was this in Upminster?
No, this was in Beckton, in East London. So that's basically, you got, I can't remember exactly, because obviously it was that amount of years ago, but you got priority first, being like a local resident, and that's what we did. So we just put a deposit down, and it was a shared ownership thing. So again, I hadn't really looked into it, but at the time, being young, it was shiny, it was new. I thought, oh, this was it.
Yeah.
So that's how we got on the property ladder, and it was a stepping stone, really. So in hindsight, going back now, obviously, I would have probably looked to a bought and owned it outright. But at the time, you're young, you're naive, you don't really see these things. But yeah.
I've never quite understood that, the shared ownership. How does that work?
With the shared ownership, at that time, you could buy a percentage. I think it was 25% that you could buy. So obviously, you rent half, well, not half, but you own 25%, and then you get a mortgage. Sorry, I'm trying to think now back myself. So you get a mortgage, I think, on it's.
So you get a mortgage for the percentage that you own, and then you basically rent the rest.
That's it, sorry, that's basically what you do. So
Right.
Yep.
Interesting.
But I think even with the share ownership these days, because the property price is so high, I mean, a lot of people are struggling even just to get onto these, share ownership properties.
And that's the thing. At the time, again, you don't realise, but they are, obviously, they're new builds. They are overpriced as well when you buy them. But at the time, we're just looking at how lovely it is and what you can do with the place and things. But that was how.
Yep. So they tend to inflate. They tend to overinflate.
At 10%, they add to new builds.
Is that right? Yeah.
And I do advise. I think with me, a family member just happened to pop in that day, and she was like, "No, don't do it. Don't do it. It will be the worst thing you ever do." And me being me, I'm like, if someone tells me not to do something, it makes me want to.
You gotta do it.
It makes me want to do it even more. And and it's funny because I always say to myself, I'm so glad she said don't do it, because that made me do it. And I always say to myself, like, that was the best decision I ever made, doing it at such a young age, because it's been a stepping stone for me to get to where I am today. So I don't always say to people, it's like it's a good stepping stone, but if you have got the money or to do it and get a full mortgage, do that. At the time, as I said, like, we wasn't looking to move. I just went in there and was a bit just bowled over by things. And at that point, we hadn't even looked at mortgages. I could have probably just got a normal mortgage and gone and bought a place outright, but it was just it was like literally 5-10 minutes away from my parents, and B, it was all brand new and on the district, like the DLR, and perfect getting into Canary Wharf for work and things. So it was convenient.
Yep.
I suppose there's so many different ways of looking at it, isn't there? Because I think what you did was you invested in a property, but you didn't let that kind of weigh you down and hold you back from going into business. Whereas a lot of people, they'll take on that commitment and then it just becomes that big weight and that big ball and chain. They're in a job that they don't like, but then they've got all these big high mortgage payments, they're over leveraged, and then it's like, then they're on the hamster wheel, and that's where they kind of spend the rest of their life, right? So it can easily go that way.
I knew pretty
obviously
quickly,
you do things different.
Obviously, you've signed all the documents and done everything, and just obviously the month-to-month living, we found out pretty quickly that we knew that we had to buy as much as we could as soon as possible, and that's pretty much what we did. So I think you had to wait a certain amount of time. I can't remember, it was a year or 2 years, but as soon as we could buy all of it, we did buy all of it. So but again, it's things like service charge and all these other little things that,
just adding on top.
I'll tell you what, I've got some bunch of buy-to-lets myself, and the houses are great, but the flat that I bought in Essex, the service charge is just crippling, and it goes up and up every single year, and they seems like the charges go up and the amount of work they do goes down. I'm like, what do you guys do for what you charge? There's still communal rubbish overflowing. There's, gates that don't work. I'm like, where's this money going? If we're all paying that much in the block, huge amounts of money. And it's daylight robbery what those guys charge. And it seems to be the same across the board.
Yeah. In one of the building that we manage in Woking, so there's this massive building where they have to be doing some more cladding work because they found some issues with that And what had happened was that, all the owners had to bear that
Wow.
cost, equally share the cost. So it's the service charge had gone up by £5,000 a year. So suddenly,
Well, for each resident?
for each owner, yes.
No way.
It's ridiculous, and everyone just scream, and so a lot of landlords in that particular building just try to pass it on to the rental price, but you can't just suddenly jump that far. So a lot of people are, suddenly they're in trouble straight away. And then when you try to sell, it doesn't sell that easily, because when you're in a block of, I don't know, 300 apartments, you are suddenly depending on other people's. You're pretty much like in a beehive, and your pricing is always affected by other. It's pretty much the same price as everyone else, and if it's all down, you're down as well. So yeah,
and I think that's the whole misconception in this country about greedy landlords, and they've got all this money, and it's like, no, it's not like that. It's a hard game. There's we get squeezed more and more and more every day, and one boiler goes down, it can wipe out your profits for the year.
Whole year.
And then we've got all the other risks associated now with with tenants. It's and the bugbear of mine is that people greedy landlords and this and that, and it's like and then the government squeeze us so we get out the business, but that and then obviously that housing then comes back into the stock, but that doesn't mean that people all of a sudden are going to afford to be able to buy those properties that we don't own. It doesn't make any sense. It's people can't afford to buy homes. That's the problem. It's not that there's too many private landlords. We're providing homes, right? It's all upside down and inside out, in my opinion, which is something that we help landlords with our business model, right? The rent to SA model. So, Katy, is this now what you're in kind of full time? The service accommodation, you've been through a few different strategies. You looked at HMOs. You've done some flips. Is that right?
Yeah, I've done one flip. But I've tried it, and in recent months I've started to think maybe I want to try it again, maybe next year, and just diversify a bit. So obviously, service accommodation is what I've been doing predominantly for the past 4 years, along with obviously running the beach hut business and being the landlord. I self-manage all of my properties as well. So everyone always says to me, "Oh, how do you do it? How do you do it?" And obviously having 3 young children as well, and I don't have any help. Obviously, I lost my mum as well, and my dad's older, and he doesn't live near me either. So I do it all on my own. And I think it's almost been the momentum of building everything, building it for the children and things. But literally the last few months, I'm not going to lie, I kind of have had a bit of a burnout where I kind of obviously the season's over, the summer season's over, and I think this year's been really hard, in comparison to other guests' expectations and things like that. And it's almost like, because of obviously the cost of living, it almost feels like some of the guests have almost had an entitlement kind of thing. There's only 1 or 2, a few more than normal basically this year, but it does leave you a little bit drained. And obviously service accommodation, ultimately I see it as it's hospitality, because if you're self-managing, obviously you've got to be everything. And luckily I am quite a people person, and I do enjoy the interaction with the guests and things. So but as in, once the season kind of ended for me, because it being a coastal, I did kind of take a step back and almost felt a little bit burnt out, in all honesty, what with everything that's going on with interest rates and things. And so I'm a little bit pleased it's quieted down a little bit at the moment, so I'll be honest.
So Katy, is your market more gearing towards the leisure market? Is that right?
We are predominantly the leisure market, being that it's coastal and things. But we do, in the winter months, have contractors, and then we occasionally get the insurance jobs coming from other areas and things. So that's generally what normally gets us through the winter months and things. So
Yes. Yeah.
So I see.
Yeah,
Sorry,
because
go.
dealing with the leisure market, as you said, that is the sense of entitlement that like when they pay the money, they expect the world. Um, and yeah, when we get that, we get that a lot. Even because we primarily focus on the contractor markets and corporate markets and relocations, but you can't stop. Like we can't stop the leisure market to come through. And every time when we have people outside our client's avatar, that's when we get problems all the time. Yeah, so it's
Contractor bookings are just the best.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
beers and
that's
pizzas.
exactly it. Yeah, and they're not in the apartment all day or the properties all day, leaving the heating on for like, I think I had one the other day. It was 21 hours they left the heating on for. So yeah, that was lovely.
Yeah, I don't understand that like the way people treat the property. Let's say, for example, if they go away for for a weekend, they wouldn't leave the heating on all day in their house. I mean, why would you do that at somewhere at other property and leave the window wide open? Why did you leave the lights on? Why did you just, I don't know, it just
but don't you think that we're all a bit hypocritical? I completely get what you're saying, and it's friggin' annoying when you go to the property and every light's on, the doors or windows are open and the heating's on. But when we go to a hotel, right? When you go on holiday, you're like, get an extra card so we can leave the card in the key slot and leave the AC on all the time, right? When we go out. So we all do it, and we're in the shit, like with the shower gel, like dumping it on our heads because it's
squeeze
free.
the last bit out.
It's funny because since
still all the miniatures on the way out.
What I've been doing, I've become more conscious so that when we are on holiday, I don't do that anymore. Whereas my husband wants to do that. I'm like, no, we can't do that. Or like reuse the towels, or you have the little cards and things like that. And I am more conscious. It has made me more conscious when I do go on holiday. But I do get it. But ultimately, I do think they can see that we're just a little, that we are a small business. We're not a multinational chain business. And
you still have 30-minute showers in the hotel. Extra hot. Come on, you know it.
Katy, I'm gonna ask you a magic questions. So would you, if you do go away on a holiday, something like that, would you stay in Airbnbs by any chance?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. So again, that's how when I first started, that's exactly what I did. That was the first thing I did. I've never really used Airbnb before, and straight away that was the first thing I did. I went online, booked my first Airbnb. It was in, where was it? Aldeburgh. So I went to Aldeburgh, and again, that's a coastal town. And we went there, and I just wanted to know how it worked because I'd never used it. I didn't understand it, and oh my god, this is like probably again, like it's funny now, but at the time, so my daughter, my second child, she was probably 18 months at the time, and this house was not child friendly in the slightest. Although they said it was child friendly, it wasn't. And it was a beautiful house, really lovely, literally minutes from the beach. But they had like a say like a Fortnum and Mason basket on the floor, and they balanced this big glass lamp on top of it, which I find really strange. And it would look lovely, it did, but it just wasn't practical. And I spent the whole weekend, watch this, watch that. It made me anxious. Like,
it could just drop
because the place was
and you could hurt somebody.
Kind of over cluttered. And literally the night before we left, she tripped on the rug. What did she do? Literally, obviously. She tipped it over. Obviously unintentionally, but it smashed. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And then obviously I notified the owner that that's what has happened and blah, blah, blah. But obviously she could have cut herself on it. But the owner wasn't... I ended up calling her in the end, and we were speaking about it. And I said, just let me know how much it is. Because again, I didn't understand the process. And I was like, I'll pay you for it. And I'll never forget, because I'm not sure you can afford it, like that. And that got my back up straight away. And I was just like, And I was like, straight away, I didn't say nothing, but I thought, how dare she say that? How does she know what I can and can't afford? And I went straight online to see how much that she'd paid for it and things like that. And she was like, oh, it cost £500, blah, blah, blah. So that's why I went online. I was like, actually, I think it cost you $295. But I didn't say that. But it was just, I was...
Yeah.
She probably knew you as an Essex
exactly,
girl.
because I think it is what, obviously, I'm East London, I'm from Essex, I live in Essex now. So obviously I do sound a certain way. And that is exactly what I thought, and it really got my back up. And I thought, because
they are quite posh in Aldborough as well.
Next to Southwold. If people don't know, obviously Southwold is the posh part. The Aldborough is like the it's still just as nice, but it's not as like
it's just not quite as nice.
It's a little bit less snobby, I think, and that's why I do like going there. And it's pretty typical to where I am.
They've got that wicked fish and chip shop.
It's the best.
Have you been to that fish and chip shop on the corner?
I'm not particularly a fish and chip person,
right?
but it does have the best fish and chip. But so that was my first lesson in how Airbnbs run and things like that. And that was the first thing I was just like, that is, you never talk to guests like that. If they break anything like that, you don't ever just assume like what these guests are. And that was like the first lesson, because it really, to this day, it still irritates me that she just assumed, because obviously the way I speak, that I can't afford a £500 lamp. She'd never met me, she didn't. And I just thought, you don't put things like that in service accommodation units, because obviously that it wouldn't have just been a child. An adult could have quite easily tripped and smashed, and they could have seriously hurt themselves. So that's one lesson with like Airbnbs and things like that. Don't put anything in there that you can't afford to replace. And just don't over clutter them with personal belongings and things like that. So,
I suppose that happens quite a lot when it's somebody's home, you know, if they're renting a room in their home, or if it's a place that they used to live in that they've, you know, moved out of, and they've still got a lot of personal stuff in there, and they don't really realize that it's now no longer their home. It's, you know, it's a business, and, you know, you got to treat it as such. And you're right. I mean, if you have expensive vases and stuff like that, and you have a 2 or 3 night booking, and they knock that vase over, you could be, you know, you could end up being in the red, you know, not making anything. So you don't want to go too overboard. So that was your kind of your pivotal moment where you thought, right, this is for me. So the drive was really to just go out and create a really nice product, really good customer service, basically do everything that person didn't do.
Needless to say, I never stayed at a property ever again.
Yeah, and what did you review her in the end, or
remember,
what did you give her?
Whether I did or not, I probably not, because she got my back up so much by talking to me like that. So I don't know. I probably didn't, to be fair. So, but again, it's her loss, like, because obviously I would have come back year on year, but after that I wouldn't. So it's always treat your guests with respect, kind of thing. So.
Well, you're obviously doing that, because I had a little, like you was Facebook stalking me, that you admitted to last night. I was Airbnb stalking you, and you're a Superhost. You've got, I think, 4.8 over 40 odd 50 reviews or something. So you're obviously doing a pretty amazing job. What's the, you know, the only thing that I don't really, I mean, obviously I love the business. This is what we do. But the only thing I don't like about it is, you know, you're just so at the mercy of tenants, obviously, of guests. And, you know, you can go out of your way to do everything to the best of your ability, bend over backwards. And you just need that one guest where it's just not good enough. That could potentially, you know, give you a really bad review and can really affect your overall rating. So what's the kind of hardest thing that you found? I've been in the business for quite a few years now. What's the biggest challenge with guests, and how do you help to kind of massage that situation? Because I always think, and we was talking about this the other day on one of our videos, if you can get properties that are close to you, and you can always do your best to do a meet and greet, that way, once you've got that face-to-face time, even if the hot water goes down or the Wi-Fi goes out, if you've had that face-to-face relationship at the beginning, there's less chance of them being hard work, you know, because you've got that relationship. So I think that's a really good way to, rather than just being kind of on the phone or messaging through the OTAs. So what's been the biggest challenge for you in that respect?
Well, for me, obviously, I live like an hour and a half away really from my property, so that's not viable for me. But I've always just relied on obviously self-check-in. But for me, I always say to my cleaning staff and team that I've almost got sixth sense, because I can always tell when the guests are going to be hard work, troublesome. Yeah, I've got other words, but I won't call them that. But yeah, when they're going to be, I just know, and I just it starts with when they first book with my channel manager. I obviously have automation set up, and if they don't reply to that email, that's kind of like the first trigger. And then I'll then email them myself so that they know it's not obviously like it's me talking now and things. And it's when they refuse to sign my terms and conditions, that's when I ultimately know what this is going to be a problem guest. And I'm never wrong. And it's always them. The ones that don't sign my terms and conditions, I know they're going to be a problem. And I had one recently, and the longer you're in the industry, at the start you're like, oh, it's all about reviews, blah blah blah. But I think you need that one bad review or two bad reviews. I think today I've got one bad review, and that was during COVID, and that one, I guess, was an absolute nightmare. But again, those types of people, you could bend over backwards for them from start to finish, and you can't please them. They're going to write you a negative review. But that's, again, one bit of advice that I always say to people in this game. Don't let that stop you or bring you down, because it ultimately shows. I think it shows more on the guests that they'll leave this review that obviously is open for anyone to review it. It shows that you are a real business, because if you're constantly getting 5-star, 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 sometimes it makes you a little bit dubious. So if you're getting 4 stars or again that one review, that's not going to kill your business. People can read reviews and things, but so. Yeah, that guest, he did end up staying because he just wasn't answering me and booking. I think it was booking.com. I always tend to find guests that I get through booking.com are these troublesome guests and things, and they got involved, and they in the end he signed my terms and conditions basically, because it was on my booking.com profile that he had to be done, and it made me laugh because. In the end, obviously, you do go that extra mile in a sense, just to prove that you are who you are and that you're not going to treat them any different just because they've obviously annoyed you prior to that. But it made me laugh because it was almost like he got his comeuppance, because literally the day he left, I got a text message about an hour later. He'd left his laptop under the bed. And obviously, and it just made me, I just thought, oh, that's just like what goes around comes around kind of thing. And I was like, generally, anything that happens like that, I'll go and collect it, or we'll send it off to guests. But it was a laptop, and I was like, well, I can't send a laptop. And I just said, I don't feel comfortable dealing with this. Like, it's a high value item. If you organise a courier to come and collect it, blah blah blah. And then when the cleaning team came in, the girlfriend had left a bag there as well, so they'd left 2 items in the property and things, and I was just like, it just made me laugh really, because I just thought you were so like arsey. I don't know whether I'm allowed to say the word arsey at the start of things, and now you're bending over backwards.
You can say what you like. That's okay. This is raw.
Now you're trying to be nice to me because you want something from me, because you've left like 2 items at my property. But again, you almost kill him with kindness, and by the end of it, he was thanking me and things like that. But it's just something part and parcel you just learn to deal with, and you've just got, at the start you're going to be really like emotive to it, but you've just got to pull yourself back if you do ever get a review, and leave it a day, think about things, calm down, and then if that is the case, then you just send a reply, and in the way that you word it, make it obvious to other guests that are potentially looking to book your properties that you are a level-headed person. And it's funny because I know when I've looked at Airbnb, some people, the way they reply to these reviews, you just think, I wouldn't stay there if you paid me. Like, you seem like an absolute nutcase. So,
it's actually quite hilarious to read those kind of reviews. You know, when you see like, oh my god, did they actually say this?
Yeah, there was one I read recently, and she literally just went full blown into this rant on one of the OTAs that why didn't you give me 5 stars? And I was just like, oh my god, you've just completely killed all of your potential business. So
I think that's something to kind of realize, is that, you know, when you're doing the courses and you're around other people that are in the industry, professional hosts, and you're looking at the quality of their product and the way that they're, you know, everything's systemized and automated, and, you know, and you think, God, you know, these people are so far ahead of me and I don't know enough. but that's a very small percentage of the market, right? When you look across the stock that's out there, a lot of it is really poor. And it doesn't take much to really stand out with some bold colors or some nice throws and some pretty pillows. You know, you can really still pop on the OTAs pretty easily without spending a huge amount of money. So I think that's quite important to note. So something else I just wanted to touch on is, I said at the beginning that you're a full-time mum, as well as a full-time business person. How has that? I'm not a father. Pooh's got 2 young kids, and I see just how crazy. I said on one of the last weekend, we were trying to get like a couple of minutes together to do some stuff, and he's like, "Oh, hold on a minute, let me look at the calendar." And he pulls up the calendar, and it's just in every box was like 10 things: swimming, ballet, play this. I'm like, how do you get anything done? So how's that journey been for you? I mean, obviously, you've got your partner as well, and I don't know if he works or whatever, but how's it been, like that balance? How have you managed to build a business, be a mum, with, was it 3 kids?
Yeah.
3 kids. Yeah.
3 kids, which is a lot. How's that been? It must have been incredibly tough.
As I said, like I can look back now and just say that I used like that property as a distraction from grieving for my mum. That is hands down, like 7 years later, I can admit that now. But at the time, I was very just like driven and head down. I've got to do this. I've got to build for their future and things. But yeah, it was like sink or swim for me at that time, and I chose to swim. And I just used my children as my why. Like everyone talks about their why and things like that, and it was ultimately for my children to build something for their future. And I honestly don't really know how I do it. I just do it. And as a mum, like obviously being female, you probably won't understand this, but you have to multitask. It's just part and parcel of being a parent. And
Katie, sorry, I think you just said something super important, because you first of all, like you said, it's either sink or swim. And for a lot of people, sometimes when they have a choice, when the back's not against the wall, they said, I'll do it tomorrow, that's okay. But like, say for example, I was exactly the same. I was in the same positions. It's either sink or swim. Plus, with the family and young kids, you have to make it happen. There's no choice. So either way,
and as well, again, I kind of use it because obviously being stuck at home with young children, there's only like 18 or 19 month gap between my eldest. So at the time I was like 2 under 2, and I used it as a distraction as well to keep me mentally sane, because it is really hard having like toddlers to deal with and things. But that was like, I don't drink, I don't smoke, anything like that. And some people use that as a release and things, but I just kind of just went full blown into the business, and that was what really kept me sane. And even to this day, still, I again, although I'm kind of back there again now, back into the toddler stage, and it does keep me from not being, I don't know, it's like, again, it's you're at home and you don't really have many people to talk to property about. And that's one thing I always found. When the kids started to at the school age, I found myself, I didn't really relate to anyone, because I wasn't just a stay-at-home mum, and I wasn't a working mum, so I didn't physically go out to work, and I didn't just get to do whatever mums do that just look after the kids all day. I didn't really fit the box. And so that was one side of things that I did find really hard, because no one could kind of relate to me. And as you said, what you've said before, when people find out that you're in property, they think, oh, she's this, she's loaded, she's got all these houses, she's got this, she's got that. But you're not. Like, if anything, the struggle I sometimes think is even harder, because you're not just struggling to keep one house afloat, you're trying to keep X amount of houses afloat, and obviously with business and things. But I don't know whether I've kind of just gone off on a tangent then, but it is just I've just used basically the property just to stop me being like a release from children, if you know what I mean. I don't know.
Katie, but how did you keep your head cool when you didn't have like proper sleep? Because as you know, like toddlers and babies, you get woken up all the time, like 2 times, 3 times at night, and that lack of sleep really really, it really is a massive killer.
Obviously,
like,
you do.
for us.
Even still now, we have days like that with like sleep regression and things like that, and it is, you almost forget about it, but then once you drag back into it, you do have times like that. And I think now I've learned, now that I know that I need to take a rest to reset my mind and things. But just for anyone really that's in that situation, little and often, really. I think at the start I was like, I must do this, and putting all this pressure on myself. And ultimately, it's only you that's putting that pressure on yourself. It's no one else putting the pressure on you, kind of thing. But I just think consistency every day, like learning something new every day, or just reading. And for me, like, I'm not a reader. I never have been. I'm a creative person. I'm a visual person. I've always struggled with the reading aspect of it. And again, recently I've just picked up a book that I've probably had for about 3 years. I was like, right, that's it. I'm going to read it. And it's just like consistency every day, a little bit each day. And again, that just that's what I needed, really, just to keep me going and things. And
Katie, is your other half in the SA business as well, or
I
you
am
are by
literally by myself again? And that's one thing. I see lots of other people with their pet, with their either their family, like parents or siblings, or their partners, but my partner's never been interested in it. I've really tried over the years to get him into it, but he's not. I remember when I very first did one course, he came with me up London, and it was very much one of those sales pitch courses, and he was just sitting there.
Take your credit card out, exactly, run to the back of the room.
We were sitting at the back, and he was literally, that's what he was doing. He was mimicking blah, blah, blah. And I think at the time, the next day was the last day we was there, and he didn't end up coming because I think Tottenham were playing that day. So he was like, no, I'm not missing it, blah, blah, blah. And he never did. He did prioritise football. He never came. And he never then stopped me from spending my money. And obviously, ultimately, I signed up for the course. But again, I don't regret any of the money that I spent, because I wouldn't be where I am now. So it swings and roundabouts. Some people are totally against courses, other people aren't. Whereas, it's what you make of them.
I think with this particular business, and kind of what we keep banging on about, is I think one of the best things about it is that there is a big misconception that you need loads of money to get into property, and people look at people who are in property and they think, oh, they must have had a silver spoon, or they've got loads of money or whatever. And, we're always banging the drum about, this specific business, as in the rent to SA model, the rent to, service accommodation model. You can start with just a few thousand. You can't start with nothing, which is what some training companies might tell you, or you can start, £500, you can get some contracts done. That's just scratching the surface, right? Then you've got your furnishings, you've got your marketing, you're probably almost going to have a bit of a refurb. Nothing's very, very rarely is anything really turnkey. And if it is, it's normally snapped up before you get a sniff of it. So, but you don't need that much. And it's the only strategy really. Obviously there's lease options and EDCs and this kind of stuff. But, if you want to get cash flow coming in, and you want to get out your day job, or if you want to just significantly boost your income as a bit of a side hustle, an educated side hustle, you need to know what you're doing. But would you agree that it's it's a reasonably easy strategy to start implementing reasonably quickly with a reasonably small amount of money, and you can get into it, reasonably quickly?
No, I do agree. It is probably one of the easier strategies. Like from a financial aspect, because obviously, like when you're flipping, it's obviously buying and purchasing. And,
it's a bit more of a slow burn.
Time.
There's a lot more to it. You've got to raise the finance. You've got to have the credit.
So in that respect, it is.
But I think But I think at the same time as well, it can be sold as a, just go out, rent a property, give it to a management company and sit back and, get paid. And I think I don't know about you, Katie, if you've ever been down the management route, but I know I tried it in the beginning, and it was a nightmare, because the management company, maybe I just, got unlucky, but I realized pretty early on, maybe I just likes being controlled. But I felt like and we were chatting about this the other day on one of the videos, I can't believe that there's any management company out there, Pooh manages fantastically, but still no management company is ever really going to push your property as much as you are going to push it yourself. and be all over it and be going around and doing spot checks and really putting in the extra mile with the guests. I just don't know if that ever exists. So I do think, you do need to put that work in, at least in the beginning. You need to learn, like any business, you need to learn the business before you could potentially start passing it on to management companies, so that
at least you can ask the right questions, I would say.
Yeah.
To them.
Yeah, it's like literally like you need to know it inside out. And as I said, like I manage my own properties, and me being me, I think it's just the type of person I am. I don't think I would ever feel comfortable in handing my properties over to someone, because I just feel like, from my point of view, as I said, I'm coastal and things, and it's leisure guests. I feel like I want them to have like the personal experience. If I was in the city, maybe I would do something like that, because obviously you're dealing with different type of clientele and things. But or I suppose the more you scale up and things, and you would obviously maybe go down that route. But just the way I am, I like to be very hands-on and things. So yeah.
So Katy, how involved are you with the business and the operations? I mean, are you like engaged like full time on like a daily basis with the team, with everything, or can you sit back a little bit more?
So obviously the team I've got built up around me, I've been working with them now for how many years? Like nearly 5 years. So we pretty much know the system now, so I can kind of take a step back. But ultimately I am the first point of call, and it is really me doing everything from my side. Obviously I'm not physically there doing the hands-on things, but I've just built up trust with the people that I work with, and they do their side, I do mine, and it's a communication. It's a team effort, but with good communication. So
So when you talk about the team, I mean, who are these people? Are they just
so basically, like obviously
different...
with service accommodation, you're only as good as your cleaning company. So that is like one of the main things. So when we first started, I interviewed about 2 or 3, maybe 4 different cleaning companies. I called around. First point of call for me was speaking to people on the phone. And one company, I asked a question, and I wasn't really, for me, I didn't really know about laundry or linen and things like that. And I asked a question, and the man just laughed at me, and but not in a good way. It was like as if to say, I can't believe you just asked that question. But for me, that was like, again, I wouldn't have worked with him moving forward, because I think that's not how you treat potential clients and things. And so I have kind of lost my train of thought now, but
So what's next for you, Katy? Where do you have a, they talk about, the coaches and the gurus, they say, you got to have this, process, or you got to, know where you're going.
It cut out there. Alex, what was the question?
Yeah, it seems to be a bit of background noise all of a sudden. Do you know where you're going? Do you know when do you want to get there by? Do you have a plan? Do you have this big kind of plan that you're working towards, or is it just kind of day to day, just kind of chipping away and just doing the best you can, or is there a specific vision that you're following? If you'd have asked me
that a couple of years ago, before I had the baby, my aim was just build, keep building, because ultimately, my why is obviously my children, but another factor for me is my husband. He works really long hours, often abroad, so I'm on my own pretty much like 90% of the time in that respect. And again, that's probably why I focus so much on work, because obviously in the evenings and things, the kids are abed, and I'm not just going to sit there and watch telly. I would rather work and things, and I get enjoyment from work. So I don't really see it as working, if you know what I mean, because I enjoy it. But 2 or 3 years ago, I'd be like, keep building, because I want to build this empire, basically, so that my husband has the choice whether he wants to work or not. So that was what it was. But obviously, since having a baby, obviously my priorities and things have changed, and that, and I'm not kind of so driven in a sense, because again, I was speaking to you, Alex, yesterday. I'm sure I said this to you. I've said it to someone recently. I'm like, I can always make money. There's always time to make money, but there's never time to get them first few, be with the baby, and
to be with
he's
them.
19
Yep.
months now, and
Mhm.
I look back now, and even still, that is a bit of a blur for some of it, because I was too busy. I was buying properties. Obviously, started in rent to SA, but the last year or so, I've bought and renovated 2 properties, and I was pregnant with one of them. And as soon as the baby was born, again, I'm renovating it. So it's been non-stop for the past couple of years. And I kind of at that point now where I do feel a little bit burnt out. And I think my New Year's resolutions, I'm going to reevaluate where I'm going and things, because you can have all this money, but it's time. Time is more, to me, is more precious at the moment. But ultimately, I will keep building and things. But I think I might change in a different direction. I quite like the idea at the moment of going back to flips, maybe next year, and then potentially looking at into HMOs again, just for another income stream, just something a little bit different to service accommodation. So, yeah.
It's always good to diversify, as they say. Have your eggs in all different baskets? So would they, if you go down the HMO route, where would that be? Would that kind of be a little bit closer to where you are?
I have thought about it, but I don't want, as what you're saying, all your eggs in one basket. I don't want to focus on one area. So obviously where I live, should I say, you've got good links into London, and you've got a different market. So, and it's more aimed at, obviously, at the HMO market. So I would want it to do something that is closer, that I can keep an eye on more myself, and obviously regularly inspect it myself. Obviously, I do that with the service accommodation, but it's few and far between because of the distance. And yesterday, my husband was with me, and we started to drive down the A12, and then there was a crash, and the A12 was shut in both directions, and so we just had to turn around. And it's things like that you forget about. Whereas if I was only investing 5 miles away or something, it wouldn't matter. But I think for me, I want to try a new area, and again, I could set up service accommodation in those areas as well, because I want to have the different types. I don't just want the leisure market. I want to try a different market.
I think it's a really good mix, is to have maybe, SA or rent to SA if you want, for your cash flow, and then to reinvest that cash flow into HMOs, and trying to refinance your money out, or as much as you can, because they're always going to be needed, right? The housing situation in this country is not going to get any easier. It's not going to get any better. It's not going to get any cheaper.
Yeah.
And
but wouldn't you find, let's say, for example, you've bought a property, renovated it, and then refinance it out as in commercial HMOs, but then the damage that comes afterwards from the tenants, that can technically just wipe out everything, And if you got bad tenants, they're not paying the rent, and now you can't evict them with Section 21. I think life's going to be a lot harder with HMO routes.
Well, as I said, it's something in my mindset. I'm toying with it. Whether or not I go through with it is another matter. I don't know whether I will, but I just want to educate myself more, and basically go from there. So, because obviously, with service accometacomodation, guests are hard. At the start, I was very much oh no, I don't want to get into HMOs, blah blah blah. But sometimes I think the guests can be sometimes worse than tenants. So
I think the only thing that the reason why we're in it is if there are any issues that happen, at least we call the police and we get them out. HMOs, buy-to-let, no chance.
It's funny, so I've had quite a few people recently
it's a lot harder.
emailing me or calling me, and effectively what they're looking for is HMOs and things like that. And obviously, I just won't entertain it, because it's, for me, it's not. I wouldn't risk my properties, not my own ones that I own, because I think I've invested too much time and money in them for them to put long-term tenants. I even had an estate agent email me through Airbnb asking me about potentially turning them into basically accommodation, to rent out on a full-time basis, and I was just no, I wouldn't even entertain it. So
So Katie, so with your service accommodation business right now, do you get a lot of free time? I mean, are you having the lifestyle that you're looking for?
I would say,
Um,
yes. Obviously, again, in asking out in the summer, I would tell you something different. It's hard from May till end of September. It's full on all day, every day. But obviously from now in the winter months, it's calmed down, and that's with both my businesses. Obviously, this is our downtime now. So I do get free time, but again, in the summer, I have to prioritise making time for the children, and it is very hard when you're juggling, you're on the phone to guests or emailing guests with the kids and things, but they know it's mummy's business, and ultimately I'm doing it for them. So
amazing.
So Katy, as we approach the golden hour here, I like to ask all of our guests a closing question, which I think is quite important. It can be a little private, if you're okay with that. But I think just with, there's a lot of mental health issues around these days, a lot of people that don't kind of talk about things and walk around potentially not in a great space, and don't really, especially with social media, everyone's just smashing it. Everyone's living the dream and, flying high. And we always talk about that, we know it's all bullshit for the most part, but Katy, would you say that you are today, are you happy? Are you happy inside? Do you wake up feeling good, and are you mostly positive and happy with where you are in life?
If you'd have asked me that a few months ago, I would have said yes, because I kind of reached one of my goals, that I'd set myself a goal since starting up the business, and I achieved that this year. So I achieved my goals, and but in the last few months, I would say probably no. But that's, again, it's circumstances, and I have to keep telling myself it's circumstances beyond my control. And I've had worrying few weeks, and so honestly, at the moment, probably I'm not at my best. I know I'm not at my best, but I'll be honest and say that, because times are hard with business and things, and so you have your ups and your downs, and you've just got to.
I appreciate your honesty, because it's so everybody just looks at other people, right, and thinks, well, it's okay for them, and they're in business, or they're making money, or they're happy, and but it's not. Like, everybody's got worries, everyone's got challenges.
I mean, this is something that I guess a lot of people who are not in business, who are not being part of the business, they would not understand you. Like, nobody would understand you, the pain and everything that you're going through. It's only the people who are inside the business and pretty much ride the same wave would know what it means. Like, say for myself, there are many nights where I could not sleep because of the cash flow issues, because of the business issues, because of a load of things, And sometimes, yes, I talk to Alex, I talk to other people, but there are things sometimes it's just hidden deep inside, where I think Alex and I were talking at one point, if I were to like open that can, if somebody were to tap into it, I would just melt down straight away.
I think everyone would, mate. I think everyone would. I don't know about you guys, but I've done like some work with like plant medicine and stuff like that. And everyone on that retreat, the second that you like poke the, like, go on, talk, it's like, it just, as soon as you open that can, you're right. Everyone's emotions.
I think, like Alex, like you mentioned, it's so important to talk about it, because once it's out, you feel a lot better. And even though it's just like, for me, it's slowly seeping out sometimes. And even that,
it's good that you're actually talking about it, and that's one thing in the industry. People never talk. All they ever see is the shiny side of it, and especially with service accommodation, I find, like, now there's so many people doing it. There's so many people trying to sell the courses and things, and portraying it as the next best thing, and they're earning so much money, but no one talks about the downsides of service accommodation and things. And up until now, it's been kind of pretty like smooth sailing for me, but in this past 6 months, different story. And I'm not gonna hide that. And if someone asks me, I will tell them, because I am a very open and honest person, and it has been hard. And I'm going through things that I've never had to experience before, and I've never had sleepless nights. But up until like about a month ago, these sleepless nights, and that's where it has affected me mentally, and then it affects my children. And that's what's kind of, I made the decision the other night, basically to hand back one of my rent to SA, my first property that I started with. And as soon as I made that decision, I felt like a weight had been lifted off me. But in the end, like I'd always said from day dot, this is just a stepping stone for me. And it was ironic because I said to the owner, "Oh, how ironic! I was trying to buy the building from you last year, and then we started with the negotiations, and it all just kind of just went south. I never heard from her again." And that was that. But I just think to myself, everything happens for a reason. And thank God I didn't try and buy that building, because the building's got issues and things like that. But obviously it was a stepping stone for me to then go on and buy my own properties. And for me personally, I don't think I would ever go back to like renting somebody else's property. Again, I'm too much. I like having control of my own property. But it was a very good stepping stone for me. And in a way, I'm glad really that that part of it has stopped, and I can just continue now with my own journey with my own properties and not be led by someone else and rents increasing and things like that. So
fantastic.
Yep.
I mean, this is the thing, you know, where Alex and I, we decided to start this podcast, this program, is because we wanted to be real about what, you know, the potentials, all the good, the bad, the uglies of the service accommodations or Airbnbs, whether it's going to be for rental or it's going to be, you know, buy, purchase, whatever that might be. But we want to share with the whole world that, yes, there are good times and there are bad times, that we need to be strong in the bad times and what to do with it. You know, so
Pooh's whole theory, and I completely agree, and I know Katie, you're going to agree as well. We've all done training, right? We've all been to the schools, and we've done the courses, whether it's online or in person. And you know, they pull up the case studies, you know, £50,000 booking and you know, 8 units in a month or whatever it is, got out of their job in 30 days. But a couple of flaws in it is, they never tell you the hard times or the troubles or the sleepless nights, like they was just saying. But more importantly than that, they don't teach you how to run a business, right? They teach you how to source it, how to speak to agents, the contract to use, how to then furnish it and market it, stage it, make it look good, get photos done, get it on Airbnb, channel managers. And that's where it ends.
And off you go.
And then, and then it's like 6 months later, everyone's gone bust because no one knows that, you know, what VAT is. And it's, you know, so that's what we're trying to create. You know, Pooh's, you know, got the business wrapped up inside out. And I think together we're trying to teach something that's a bit more genuine, a lot more rounded and more in depth and more kind of comprehensive than just the fluff that you get sold in the.
Because I think a lot of time, as Alex said, it's half of the book that you're given like the first half. You never told the second half. And that's where I think goes wrong.
If you're doing that, then I think obviously you've got the market basically, and that's basically I think what these trainers should be doing. But I think obviously they only want to show you the good side and in effect the easy side, because the hard part is running the business side of things. So
The kind of other edge to the sword, though, is that it's easier to sell the butterflies and the unicorns and the fluffy, you know, stuff than it is to say, okay, guys, it can be great, but you got to accept this and that as well. And the hard times and the sleepless nights, it's harder to sell that, even though that's what people need to know. So it's that's the challenge. But yeah, we'll get there. We're determined to get there. So, listen, Katy Tyler, it's been amazing. I feel like we could just sit here and talk for another hour. But it's been so amazing hearing your stories and how you've kind of juggled business with family and kind of being honest about where you are right now. And you know, it goes without saying, even though we've only known each other 24 hours, always here to lend an ear if you need to chat about anything.
If you ever need to chat, I don't know, anything, do give us a call. You know, we're just a call away. So, it's always good to, you know, to speak. I don't know, just to
thank you. I appreciate it.
So, absolutely. So that's it for another episode from us on the Airbnb Nomads podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week with another interesting guest to talk all things Airbnb service accommodation. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much.